Good morning. This is the Blaine's World podcast that can be found each week on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. You can also listen in on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, and you can get more information and listen to previous shows on our website, www.blainesworld.net. I'm your host, Blaine Greenfield, and I'm here in my Zoom studio in lovely downtown Fairview, North Carolina. And each week we focus on positive news and information that people and organizations in both Western North Carolina and throughout the country. And to that end, it's my pleasure to introduce my guest today, and she is Melanie Veazey. Before we talk about your background, Melanie, let me have you wave to all your fans and friends who are watching this.
Hi, everyone. Okay. Nice to see you.
Okay, and this is Melanie Veazey, who will be in an upcoming show at Parkway Playhouse, The Red Velvet Cake Wars, and that'll be in June, I think it opens. That's the show, and should be a lot of fun. But before we talk about that show, Melanie, let me ask you the question I always ask people the first time I meet them. And that's you grew up as a kid where?
I grew up in New York, in the suburbs of New York, in a little town off the Whitestone Bridge called Beechhurst, a suburb of Queens. And that's where I was born and raised. And started in, I was Golda in Fiddler on the Roof in my 6th grade play. So
I was going to ask you that. So it's funny, I also grew up in New York on the other side on Long Island, as you might be able to tell. And so I know Beechhurst also well. But the first role, so that was in 6th grade. Was that your first role?
No, actually, in 4th grade, I was Jane Banks in Mary Poppins. So that was my start. And my very good friend, Stephen DeRosa, who was also he was Tevye in Fiddler, and he went on to Broadway. So it's fun that we both got our start together in elementary school, and we both had leads, and then we both ended up in theater. So,
well, I want you to keep that in mind, because I had this great idea for a fundraiser, and I'll ask you about the 4th grade play. In that, when you did it, do they have a video recording of that?
Well, that was like ancient times. So, but yes, I know there's a videotape of Fiddler on the Roof. I have that. But that was in the day where there wasn't an orchestra, there weren't tracks. So my 6th grade teachers actually had a record player that they put on in front of the stage. And our job was to sing as loud as we could over the record player, but still being able to hear the music, to allow the audience to hear the music. So it was, that was ancient times. So, but it was great.
Well, I mentioned that because I have this great idea for a fundraiser, Melanie, and I've shared it with other people at Parkway, but I'll share it with you.
Okay.
And that is, I want everybody to recreate their very first role, so we'll do the 4th grade play. You get to recreate that part. Wouldn't that be cool?
That would be very cool. Although really, my start was with my grandparents used to stand me on a table in the middle of their living room and sing Matchmaker from Fiddler on the Roof. So I don't know, maybe I would have to be one of the sisters, because that was really my grandparents were very into showbiz. So, but
they don't have a recording of that. So we'll have to go back and do a recording. Think about that.
Okay.
So you can then have pass it on to other people. You were telling me off there, it's kind of interesting that after the 4th grade play, you then did the 6th grade musical. Right. And you mentioned that one of your performers kind of went on beyond.
Yes. So we both actually, we had very similar paths in that we went on to high school, and then for college, I went to Carnegie Mellon and he went to Yale. And then we lost touch. And then after I had graduated, and I went to see a show at Yale Rep, and it was 12th night, I think. And he was in it, and I had no idea he was in it. And it was the most wonderful experience and memory, because I went backstage and I looked at him, and it was like we were in 6th grade again, so, and we're still in touch. And over the years, I've sent students to New York to see friends of mine in Broadway shows, and he was so lovely. And he was in On the Town a few years ago, and he was very lovely to see. All of a handful of my voice students came and saw the show, and he took them backstage. And so,
well, we'll give a shout out again. His name is again Stephen
DeRosa.
Okay, if you're watching, Stephen, or hopefully will, or we'll get you a copy of this tape. You made it He made it big time. He's on the
Big
BLAINESWORLD
time.
BLAINESWORLD
Yeah.
podcast. Who would have thunk?
He would love it. He would
Okay,
love it.
well, thanks for joining us, Stephen, at least on the podcast. And so you then acted in 6th grade. Trace your career from there.
Okay, so I did some stuff in middle school, and you know, I kind of, my parents put me in modeling, and so I did some ads for JCPenney and Sears, and then I moved to Connecticut, and I was in high school, a private high school, and it was really more focused on academics. So I made sure to study hard. And then I really decided, I didn't really act much in high school. I was more focused on dance at that point. And then I went to Carnegie Mellon University. I was very, very fortunate to get into, it's called a conservatory school, where you basically act, sing, and dance all day. And so I would wake up at 8:30 in the morning, and we'd go to voice and speech, and then acting. And then after that was dance. It was like 4 years of summer camp, you know? And there were only, I think we started out with 36 people in our class. And then by the end, we were on a cut system. So they would actually cut the people that were not up to par, they thought. So, but I made it to the end. There were 18 of us left. And we all went to New York at the end of our 4 years, and we did a presentation in front of agents. And most of us got an agent. And then from there, it was really up to us what we did. And I did a lot of auditioning. And I actually got, right out of school, I got, it's how I got my Screen Actors Guild card, which is the union. I did a part on the ABC series Equal Justice with Sarah Jessica Parker.
I knew it, yeah.
So, so that was my start. And one of the things that I like to talk about now is that I thought it was so easy because I got jobs right out of college. I was booking things all the time, and then all of a sudden it stopped. And nobody at school really explained to us the business of the business, and that it's not just you're here in New York and you sign the Rich and Famous contract and that's it. But you know, it was like, wait, I didn't get that. Why? I did my best audition, and then it really started to affect me that I wasn't getting jobs. So one of the last auditions I remember doing is I was auditioning for a musical called Will Rogers Follies.
Sure.
And it was on Broadway at the time. And I got called back, and I was on stage with the most beautiful women in New York City. And it's one of my favorite stories to tell my students, because if you don't have a tough skin and you're not prepared, you'll basically shoot yourself in the foot. Because what I did was I looked around, and that woman was taller than me. That woman was skinnier than me. That woman had better shoes than me. She had red hair. And so really by the end of the audition, there was no way I was going to get it, because everybody was better than me. So.
So you didn't get the part?
I did not get the part. And after that, I took a break. I needed a break because it was starting to get to me mentally.
Well, you know, you're raising it. It's a great story, because I hope folks will listen to it, because same thing even in this Asheville area. And you'll see, as you become more acclimated to it, a lot of talent, you know.
Yeah.
I'm talking really fine actors, and people don't realize that there are equally good actors out there too. Yeah. It's just, I guess you just have to have persistence and have to keep going for it. And I guess not get discouraged is the easy thing, because otherwise you'll never be in anything, you know.
That's right. So, and this all came, I became a coach. I did a lot. I ran my own studio for 8 years. I put dance and drama programs into private schools. I went into the service business instead, and I still performed here and there, but really my work has been in encouraging young hopefuls. And so one of the things that I say to them always is, there's enough for everybody. There's enough. You just have to believe in yourself, and there is nobody like you anywhere. And And also one of my favorite things to say is this is a business and the product is you. So you have to really know how to sell yourself, market yourself, know what your product is, know what your strengths are, your weaknesses are. So it's, and I love that part of what I do now is to really help the youngsters find their home in the theater.
And I think you're a good example of another point I believe you tell people, and I tell people as well too, is you have to open yourself to lots of opportunities. So
Right.
for example, I tell all actors and performers, you want to get experience, become a stage manager, and see kind of behind the scenes of a show. And I think you can talk about it as well. Aside from the actors you see on stage, there are a lot more people behind the scenes that put on the show. And you want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, actually, sure. One of the things that Carnegie Mellon did that was so wonderful was for our first 2 years there, we didn't really perform in the main stage shows. We did scene work in class, but at night, they kept us busy all day. And at 7 o'clock every night, we would go to crew so that we would learn what went on backstage. So we were either on costume crew, paint crew, set crew, run crew. So for the first 2 years, I ran follow spot, I built costumes, I painted sets, I worked backstage. So by the time you become a performer on stage, you really appreciate everybody backstage and to say, thank you so much. You're so valuable to me. I couldn't do this without you. And it really creates a true ensemble of not only performers, but it takes a village to put on a show, and it takes a village to put anything on a movie, a TV show. So everybody is as important, and really there's no room for ego. You all have to do it together. And
to give folks a feel for that. So say, for example, in a small show or the one you'll be at Parkway, 4 to 6 people, whatever, how many people typically are behind the scenes and make up the cast and crew? Not just the cast, but the crew. How many people typically above and beyond?
I would say in the regional shows that I've worked in, I haven't done a show at Parkway yet, so I'm not totally sure, but there's your stage manager, there's somebody that runs props, there's a costume manager that will make sure your costumes are set backstage and that they're clean. There's your director, maybe sometimes there's an assistant director, but the set designer is backstage. At Parkway, they have this incredible set shop right in the back of the theater where they build everything, and they're working hard. And as the actors are in rehearsal working on their lines and putting everything together, everybody else is working on the show itself so that the actors can walk onto a set and it's there and the sound is right. There's somebody that runs sound. There's somebody like at the Parkway, Cheyenne is our marketing manager. So she's there. Sometimes there's a choreographer that does the dance. So it can be 10 people, it can be 20 people. You look at Phantom of the Opera just closed on Broadway, and they showed all of the people that worked backstage and the hundreds and hundreds of people they employed. So it can go anywhere from just a handful, 10 people to hundreds.
And the one I saw that about the show you mentioned, and it was incredible too that some of the people have been with the show for like 25 years. It's just
and I'm so sad for them because what are they going to do?
Right, exactly.
What are they going to do? They had this incredible job to go to every day, and now they're out of work. Like most actors are always out of work. So,
and I have to ask you, even though it's not part of the upcoming show, I noticed I asked you before the taping began here. You have a beautiful sign there, "Take it easy." What's the significance of that show? And by the way, it's great advice for people, I guess, in theater. What's the story behind that?
Well, my dad, who passed away 5 years ago, was the nicest, most loving. He loved his kids. There's 3 of us, and he supported us. We're all artists. My brother's a composer. He went to Juilliard. My sister went to Skidmore as an actor. and I went to Carnegie Mellon as an actor and singer dancer. And we would get stressed out about everything on the planet. This wasn't working, that was, and my dad was always very mellow, and he would just say, take it easy. And so I have this sign in my office or in my Zoom room for anybody that I coach or teach or talk to, just as a reminder that just take it easy. It's okay. It's all going to work out somehow. And so I try to live by that. And that's my reminder. Just take it easy.
Had your dad been a performer?
My dad was never a performer. My grandparents, my grandfather his dad was a wannabe, he was Frank Sinatra. He just loved Sinatra. And so that's been passed down to me. I'm a big Sinatra fan, big Rat Pack, all of that, those guys. But my dad, though he loved to sing, was never a performer. He was a very hard worker. He manufactured socket set screws. So little baby screws that held cell phones together, airplanes, computers. So he had his own business, and he worked very hard his whole life to provide for all of us. So to everybody from my dad, Stephen, take it easy.
It must have been very exciting, though, that he also got to see you perform.
Many times. I think it was his greatest joy to see all of us succeed in our own ways. And it was always an event to see whoever was in a show. There was a big family exodus to whatever city we were performing in. And it was a very nice time. It was a very nice time for all of us. And so, we as his children try and carry that on for him, and just pass along the love.
Did you ever get to perform with your brother and sister?
No, not that I can think of. But lots of stuff at home. We would put on shows for everybody. There was always a show happening for my grandparents, for my dad. My dad actually built me a stage when I was probably 5 or 6. He put a stage. He lived in downtown Manhattan, and he built it was a loft space, and he just built a stage at the end of the loft for me. It ended up being turned into a bedroom, but when I was little, it was the coolest thing ever. So sometimes I look back and go, geez, Dad, did you really have to build me a stage? Maybe I could have been something else in my life.
So talk about then how you got then from New York originally, Florida area you were for a long time, you said. Now you're in Barnardsville. What got you to Barnardsville?
Well,
Burnsville. Yeah, sorry.
So I met my husband 14 years ago in the Orlando area. He's born and raised Florida boy, and we lived about a block away from each other and never knew it. And then all of a sudden, the universe and the stars aligned, and we met through our neighbors. And he born and raised there. It was just, I think, of course, everybody's life changed during the pandemic. And we really took a look at a lot of things and what was bringing us joy and what was not bringing us joy. And my husband turned 60 last year, and we went on a beautiful trip to Prague, and we came home, and we just said, it's just not for us anymore. The neighborhood, the whole environment there was so hot, so congested. And we have friends and family that live in Asheville and Weaverville. And we just took a ride. We got in the car, we did a little road trip, and we drove up here, and we looked at all of the communities surrounding Asheville. We did like 10 days and just kept coming back to Burnsville, and all of the artists and the town and the theater and the town square and the restaurant, just everything. We just kept coming back, and we found a home that we just fell in love with on a mountain. And within 3 months, we sold our house in Orlando and came here, and we landed in paradise. I truly, There is not a day that's gone by that I have regretted anything. I am so just in love with life right now.
Well, I'm so glad you're here because we have the same kind of experience that we've lived in a bunch of places. But yeah, this area we just love. And you were telling me also off the air that ironically, you're in this area with this amazing playhouse. And you said what was so cool. You said it reminded you of another playhouse you were familiar with?
Yeah. So when I first moved here, I was driving around the area and I saw the sign for Parkway Playhouse, and I took the little back road to it, and it was like the clouds parted and the sun was shining on this beautiful red barn. And one of my very first theater experiences was in a theater called the Sharon Playhouse in Sharon, Connecticut.
Oh, sure.
And I did wonderful, wonderful theater there with a group called Tri-State Center for the Arts. And when I worked there, it was everything a regional theater should be. It was in a barn. It has so much character and energy from all the performers that work there. And when I met Marcy, who's the executive director of the Parkway Playhouse, she took me into the theater, and it was just at the end of the season last year. And I walked in and it was the exact same theater, from the open wood in there to the way the stage was situated, to the light booth, to the backstage area. And if you ever have the chance to go backstage at the Parkway Playhouse, everybody has signed their name somewhere. So there's even in one of the dressing rooms, there's a woman that had gone onto Broadway, and they have a little frame around her signature, which is so lovely and wonderful. So I feel like I've come home in a way, being able to work at the Playhouse this summer. I feel like I'm going back to a place that was so near and dear to my heart, and able to experience that again in a new town.
And we'll give the shout out. You mentioned Marcy. It's Marcy Bernstein, who's
Marcy
just
Bernstein.
does a great job with the theater there. And so talk to me about what happened. So you wind up in town and you just walk in and all of a sudden you just walk in, make an appearance, or how did that
Yes,
come
that's
about?
it. And then they said, you're in the show. No, I really had no intention of performing. The last show I did I was Amanda Wingfield in the Glass Menagerie in Daytona. And that part, though incredible, it just sucked the life out of me.
Oh, sure.
And I really needed a break from performing. So when I came to Marcy, I said, this is what I can do for you. Just, let me know if I can be of help or of service in any way. I can do all of these things. And so the first thing they asked me to do was to do a summer camp for them. So I said, oh, great. I'd love to do a musical theater intensive. It's what I do the best. I love working with teenagers. I can really work with them on songs, group songs, dances, help them figure out what they want to do. And by the way, that's June 5th through the 9th. If you have a teenager and you'd like to come to my musical theater intensive.
And by the way, hold on that thought a second. If you mention, if folks want to get more information about it, do you have the website handy there?
It's if you just go online to, I think it's Parkway Playhouse. Right. So I don't have the website in front of me, but I can look it up. It's parkwayplayhouse.net, I think.
I'll look as we're talking. We'll see who can beat each other. But yeah, okay. So they'll find out all the information they want about the
yes, or on Facebook, and I'm sure on Instagram. So
okay, but so by the way, it is parkwayplayhouse.com.
.com. Okay, yeah. Not .net.
Okay. parkwayplayhouse.com. So okay. Go there to find out about the summer intensive. Yes. And so what will happen during that summer intensive?
I have 3 hours in the mornings for Monday through Friday. So what we're going to do is a little bit of everything. We're going to do some theater, improv, acting games, get to know each other, followed by a song workshop, working on how to break down a song, singing solos, what drives a song in a musical, followed by staging group songs, working on basic choreography to more advanced choreography, and then we'll work. I'm going to have the kids bring a song that they'd like to work on, and like I said, some group songs, and we'll do harmonies, and by the end of the week we'll put together a show with all of that stuff.
Well,
so
that'll be in a 5-day period. They'll do all that.
Yep.
Okay, and what age limit is?
It's through 18. So I put it at ages 10 to 18. If you're a more advanced 10-year-old and you think you can handle some good musical theater intensive, then come on out. But mostly, like I said, I love teenagers just because they're really, they can see that star, they can see that what they want in their lives. And so hopefully I can encourage them to follow their dreams a little bit.
Very exciting. So you got into, so all of a sudden you're new in town.
Right.
All of a sudden, not
so
too
here,
long.
so here's how it happened. So I knew they were having auditions, and I emailed Marcy and I said, listen, is there any way I could come sit in on auditions? No judgment. I just want to see what the local talent is. And if you have teenagers auditioning, then I could figure out how I could best be of service to you guys. If you want me to do some audition workshops, or whatever. So I went and I sat in, there were 4 directors and Marcy and Courtney, who is the music director. And I sat in the corner, just kind of minding my own business. And I was sitting next to Diane Maisel, who is the director of the Red Velvet Cake War. And we got to talking, and she's lovely. And we were talking about our backgrounds in theater and how she moved here and how she's so happy, and how I moved here and I'm so happy. And she looked at me and she said, are you auditioning? And I said, no, I'm going to sit this one out. I just, I need a break. I'm going to just dip my toe into the Parkway Playhouse, and I'm going to teach a little, maybe choreograph a little. And she said, you should really audition. I said, no, I'm not prepared. I really don't want to do a monologue. And she said, you don't have to do a monologue, just read from the script. And I said, oh, all right, well, if you have it, I mean, if during a break when nobody's here, I'll get up and I'll read for you. And so before I knew it, there was a script in my hand, and I read for Gaynell in the Red Velvet Cake War. And I sat back down, and she looked at me and she said, I'm so glad you auditioned. And I said, all right, well, whatever, whether I get the part or not. And anyway, come to find out that she gave me one of the leads of the Red Velvet Cake War. And it's just, when I first read it, I thought, this is the fluffiest piece of Southern comedy that I've ever read. But the more I read it, and the more I got to know Gaynell, and the more I got to know the Verdines and the family, it's so funny. It's slapstick. It's the Golden Girls meet Lucy and Ethel on their way to the Designing Women, and it's just slapstick, fast-paced comedy with visual gags, and it's just theater that there's nothing to think about. There's no edge. It's just to come out and have a fun night. Nobody's trying to beat you over the head with a theme or something heavy. It's what we need right now. It's joy. It's pure joy.
Talk about that. That's probably going to be tough for you, though, between that and Glass Menagerie, in terms of which tested your acting chops greater, but a little bit different part.
I mean, I think I started memorizing that script six months before I even stepped into rehearsal. There were 17 monologues. It was the most probably, and I've done some pretty heavy roles, but that was it. That was like, if I never act again, I'm good.
How long was that? Not that run, but the Red Velvet Cake Wars. How long is that run for?
It's 2 weekends, June 2nd to the 11th. And so you really have to, if you want to see it, you got to get your tickets, because I think there's really only 6 performances.
Yeah.
So it's short and sweet, but they have a great season. There's four great shows, and hopefully you'll get to interview all of the wonderful directors and performers that are coming up this summer.
And one of the shame of that is that, for example, when you were in Glass Menagerie, how long was that run?
It was a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So it's always hard because there's a balance, right? You have all of these performers and everybody works together to put on the show, and then you only have 6 performances, 12 performances. But really it comes down to, it's also a business. So you can only run the show for a certain amount of you have to pay rights for the performances. So it's really a matter of, okay, we can run it. If we can fill the audience to 80%, it makes sense for us to run 6 shows or, and a lot of times if the show doesn't sell and it's a 3-week run or a 4-week run, then you're playing to empty houses and it makes no sense. But I have a feeling with Marcy's new, there's a bunch of wonderful new people at the Playhouse, and I think that they're working back up to that. I think that for now they're doing just really wonderful. They're doing Good Man Charlie Brown. They're doing Star Spangled Girl and Black Comedy, and they're all just come on in, laugh. It's a great night, and then I think as this new administration kind of works more together with the town, they'll figure out what works and if they want to do a longer run, for example. So,
by the way, folks should realize too how much time and effort you put into this. So for a 2-week run, you're going to be in rehearsals for how many weeks?
So my rehearsal process starts Monday, the 24th, and we rehearse Monday through Thursday, 6:30 to 9:30, for probably 4 weeks. And then we do a week of what we call tech, where you do the lights. It's called cue to cue, where you run each cue of the show. Then we'll do dress rehearsals. Then we'll do a tech run. So we're in rehearsal in one room, and then they're all building the sets in the theater and working on lights and sound. And then we all come together for tech week, and we put it all together and see what happens. And that's really when the magic happens.
And I just encourage people to come out to it, because great little small theater to be into, and just all the work and time you put into it, people should see that. It's just
of course, and it's the way I feel about Burnsville. It's such a lovely, warm, and wonderful town. Everybody's friendly. Everybody cares about everybody from everyone that I've met and come into contact with. Everybody has kindness in their eyes still, and it's just a wonderful place to be. And I think the theater itself possesses that same quality. The minute you walk in, you feel welcome, you feel cared for, you feel that they're going to take you on a joyful ride. These storytellers that are here to help you and to help you have a good time.
By the way, listening to you is giving me a great idea for either another course you could teach or a seminar, but keep this one in mind, producing a show, because nobody's done it in the area. I'm just saying that there's a real need for people. How do you do soup to nuts, almost like you're doing the intensive, but for the same thing, putting on a show, the marketing, the financial backing, the rights, all that good stuff. I think it'd be a natural to teach that course.
Oh, thank you.
Which segues into a final question. So after we get done in the run of this, so June 2nd to
the 11th, June 2nd to the 11th. So in between that, so June 2nd to the 11th is the show. And then somehow I've managed to put the intensive is in between that. So there will be 2 weeks where I don't sleep.
I would imagine. Okay. And then after June 11th, do we have any plans for the future?
So in the fall, my plan for the summer is to go out and support the Parkway Playhouse and see all the wonderful shows that they have going on. And I'm excited to that. And I'm excited to see their kids shows. They're doing Beauty and the Beast Junior, which is a big Disney musical, as we know. So the kids are going to do that in the summer. And then their fall teen show is Willy Wonka Junior, which is always a fun show, especially around Halloween with all the candy. And so I'm going to choreograph that, which will be fun.
Hopefully we might get to see you in some other Asheville theater in the area.
I hope so. I'm very happy where I am, where I lived in Orlando. Everywhere I went to do theater, it was always a 45-minute drive.
Right.
And so I'm so happy that the theater is 15 minutes from my house. But we'll see as time goes on. I might get the urge to do more than this, but I'm really happy where I am right now.
Well, we're happy to have you in the area. And lastly, Melanie, if folks want to find out about what you're doing or other good stuff you're going to be doing in the future, what's the best way to keep in check?
So I have my website is www.melanievz.com. My last name is spelled Veazey. So melanievz.com. And you can find me on Facebook under Melanie Veazey. I coach privately, voice acting and audition. I'm on Zoom. We can get together on Zoom or however you'd like. But so I'm just starting out here, but feel free to find me on Facebook or my website. And I look forward to meeting everybody and getting to know the community more.
By the way, Melanie Veazey, I'd like to thank you for being my guest on this edition of Blaine's World podcast. Hope to see you hope to see you at the show in person. I'll actually get to meet you. I'd also like to thank my producer, Cappy Tassetti. And we'll see you all next time you catch a Blaine's World podcast. Be well, Melanie.
Thank you. Bye.